Magic. Right. Well, for those of you who don't know me too well, my name is Andrew. I'm a personal trainer and I've been in the industry for about 10 years. I started in 2009. But during that time, I've also done a number of business management studies. I've worked on strategic management. I've worked on accounting, and more recently, I've looked into organizational development, which has come quite in handy for managing businesses of different sizes. Right now, business is a little bit turbulent. To address the elephant in the room, there's COVID, and that has it's put all plans and planning to the sword. We're all somewhat stuck next to our drawing board, wondering how we're going to make adaptations based on the environment in front of us. On top of that, we've got technology. Technology has been becoming more present within the fitness industry for quite some time now. But again, with COVID, we found that the environment has actually pushed it forward a solid half decade or even a decade in terms of how we interact with our clients, how we monitor and integrate our services, and of course, how we communicate them when things are locked down. So the mix of both have created a little bit of chaos. And that's not necessarily a bad thing, because within chaos, nested within chaos is uncertainty and also potential. And when we face chaos, it forces us to rethink a little bit in terms of how we should be operating, how we should be thinking about our businesses. And today, I want to provide a little bit of, hang on a minute, here's Nikki. I want to provide a little bit of information on how we can use business and look at the business lens as a tool so that we can make the best decisions with our fundamentals and how we can address turbulence moving forward. Now, you might think, yes, businesses changes and it's constantly changes. What we learn about technology or the environment now might not be relevant in 6 months or 18 months. But the reality is that things do change. Business insights change. The political environment changes. The threat of substitutes will always be present, and it constantly changes to different products. But the fundamentals don't. The constant need for planning, the constant need to know our environment will forever stay the same. And hopefully, the tools that we uncover today will give you a little bit of insight as to how you can utilize those effectively. Right. I've got the screen share up and running. Can everyone see that? Fantastic. Now, just for a little bit of interactiveness and dynamism, you're all, I think, on mute. But every now and then, there's going to be topics that I'm going to focus on, and there's going to be topics that I'm going to glaze over. When those topics come around, you may want to stop me so that we can expand on them more readily. And if that's the case, just unmute yourself and just buzz. And I think, if I'm right, the unmute button is the space bar. Could everyone give that a try and just push the space bar and say hello? Or is that?
Hello.
No?
Hello, it's for me. Can you hear me?
Right, that's perfect. And so if that works or doesn't work, that is all good. Otherwise, just manually unmute yourself and we'll go from there. But first and foremost, here we are. Today, we're going to look at the business process and how each element delivers information that will be vital to each other, and they depend on each other. The elements are strategy, customer experience, communications or CRM, marketing, sales, and accounting. We're going to look a bit deeper into each of those elements, and we're going to shed light on a number of points that are necessary to consider, and that when supported and maintained, can provide to prove to be pivotal to business success. And of course, if they're neglected, it can cause a little bit of unnecessary grief. Simple processes to thrive in a turbulent market. So we have strategy and vision. Here we are. We have vision and strategy. In short, it's about what you're up to, what you want to be up to, and how you want to do it. At the top, we have the most broad sense of this concept. What is your business aiming to serve? What is your business aiming to achieve? The reason why having a solid vision is important is because it helps you govern the direction of your decisions across time. It's hard to set goals if you don't know what you're after. And yes, setting goals comes next. You've got a vision. It can be broken down and sliced and diced in 100 different ways. And it's important to start setting a comprehensive business aim. Bear with me. They don't need to be accurately defined just yet, and we'll get to its terminology. But who would you like to serve? How much would you like to make? Where would you like to be in 12 months or 2 years or 5 years? Creating goals and creating a vision is about putting your pen to paper and imagining. I'm going to say something that's relevant in the coaching process, being the process we engage with our clients. Most people, including you, including me, including your clients, will resist setting goals. We do this because it immediately defines the parameters of what falling short is. And it's easier to exist, even in business, in an environment that is ambiguous and non-achievement based, where things kind of get done and things kind of get talked about, than it is to clearly establish an aim and then bust your gut to succeed at the risk of falling short and failure. But what do we tell our clients about the phenomenon of failure? It's necessary. We tell them it'll happen. It brings about growth. It's part of the process. So don't let setting goals get in the way of action. Put pen to paper and imagine. Have a vision that's broad and imaginative, and set goals. Now, I'm going to use a little bit of management speak here. When we talk goals, we loosely interchange this with targets, objectives, aims, and for the most part, we mean the same thing. And for the most part, it does mean the same thing. But when we're working with something as complex as your own business management, we're going to try to break this down a little bit more. You've set some less specific, more broadly defined goals. We're kind of steering away from the SMART concept on this one. And we're going to delineate these into more detailed objectives, broadly defined and extracted from our vision to a delineated from our goal and more specific. A goal may be that we aim to increase our revenue by 15%. Objectives stemming from this may be increase billable client hours by 5 hours per week. A goal may be to have a tighter grasp on your business financial landscape. An objective may be to have quarterly or yearly projections in place and to know the cash flow for each month. A goal may be that you'd like to earn $100,000 a year. So an objective may be what consists of $25,000 for a quarter, find it out, or perhaps run 1 or even 2 challenges per quarter. Here are a couple that I've put together just on the screen. You can take a look at them while I keep on chatting. The reason why we fragment these down, and we continue to do this, is because it allows us to know what level of the business we're working on, and it gives us a more wieldy sense of time. You'll see that we fragment objectives down further still, even into targets, and then targets into daily or weekly operations. I know this is a lot to take on board, but bear with me. When you get this right, it becomes a 1 + 1 = 3 phenomenon. The sum becomes greater than the parts. If what you do each day or on a weekly basis is preordained by aiming at your targets, which are aiming at objectives, which are brought about by your goals, then you can be assured that your regular activities are heading toward an accurate narrative of your vision. Does that make sense? Thumbs up. Right. We're going to add another layer onto this approach by understanding a little bit about strategy and determining what the most effective strategy is for your business. Now, what we've discussed in terms of goal setting somewhat goes over strategy. We create a plan of attack. In a way, we generate the strategy to bring our goals about. But I want to discuss this in a little bit more depth. Can you set goals that work at cross purposes to each other? Yes. Can you set goals that stretch you too thin? Yes. An example being, if you want to be the leading expert in PT for successful aging, and you want to also make a margin on selling pre-workout, you're going to have some competing priorities. If you want to be the best when it comes to having a great customer experience, but you also want to be great at having training programming ready at all times, one of which is about intimacy and the other about operational processes, you're going to have some issues when it comes down to making decisions. While business goal setting gives you a pipeline of action, a good strategy can create a hierarchy of how to determine what's important and congruent. Competitive strategy can come down to a small number of parts. In the past, management had this idea known as Porter's competitive strategies. They were predominantly product-based strategies, and knowing them has some uses in terms of making these decisions. I'd suggest you do a little bit of reading on Porter's strategies, but we as trainers don't sell products. So product-based strategies such as cost leadership, trying to be the cheapest, differentiation, trying to be the most premium, and focus, trying to niche out as most as possible, generally fall short of the mark. They're generally too poorly defined for a service-based offering, or they're too centralized to be sustained as a strategy across the different administrative functions of a service that we're going over now. So for services like us, we have 3 new strategies. They are the values disciplines, and they're brought about by authors Michael Treacy and Fred Wiersma in their book, The Discipline of Market Leaders. They are customer, we've got another magic. They are customer intimacy, operational excellence, and product leadership. Customer intimacy. This strategy aims to centralize your business model around the customer. Your aim would be to anticipate, meet, and even exceed customer expectations, providing solutions as effectively as possible. And for this particular approach, you might focus on the demographic research as much as possible, trying to understand who your customer is and to create an amazing customer experience. We're going to talk about that shortly. Operational excellence. Think fast to provide results with as little hassle as possible. Operational excellence aims to lower costs as much as possible, which allows for the lowering of price also. The main focuses here are cost control, efficiency, and management of the value chain, from raw materials or problem solving to the delivery of the product to the customer, your personal training session or program. This particular approach would be great for anyone who focuses on providing programming or online programming. You'd focus on having a wide range of products that met the customer needs, and you'd do so with as fast as possible. You'd also follow up with troubleshooting, and if you could, troubleshooting even before it's necessary. Knowing what your customer thinks, knowing how they're going to react with your product. And lastly, in terms of the values discipline, product leadership. The strategy seeks to provide cutting-edge products that they can lead the market in, or providing the best product that they can compete more effectively than their competition. Think of the MyZone belts or Orange Theory, which use the heart rate monitoring system. Or think of a powerlifting gym that has all the best and the newest equipment. Now, this strategy particularly can be quite challenging for PTs. It's great for gyms, but it requires a lot of product research and product investment, which isn't really characteristic of us trainers. The aim of these strategies, based on the recommendations, is that you seek to excel at one of them and then perform sufficiently at the others. Think of a tricycle with a big wheel at the front, that's, let's say, one of them, and the 2 supporting wheels behind, helping keep balance and support. Personally, I've found that PTs, or for PTs, the focus is having a great customer intimacy, followed shortly by the best operational excellence. Having that is a really good approach, and that's probably how I recommend using that model, but definitely research those particular points. It will help you. The takeaway from vision and strategy, strategize your aim, break it down into a granular and operational level, and look forward to failure. It's absolutely the best form of feedback. We're going to move on to customer experience, but hopefully now when I talk about the next few things, you may even begin to fragment them into goals and plans and targets as we talk about them. But let's get into customer experience. All right, customer experience. On a survey of over 2,000 large businesses across the world, customer experience was #1 as a top priority. And we can define it as the overall perception of your brand in the eyes of your customer, built on the accumulated interactions they have with your business across various platforms. If you guys can sort of see me, I'm reading this off a little screen here so I can, quote what people are saying. But anyway, famous brands are icons. Think Apple or Spotify or Lululemon. What draws us to these particular items? Well, that's a conference in itself, but something that plays the paramount role is how the customer perceives the brand or how they interact and engage with it. It's an experience. The brand itself has a spirit and it's animated. What creates a good experience? Well, as we covered in the strategy above, we've gained a little bit of insight as to how a positive experience can be extended to a customer, but to amplify these further, there are things we can do regardless of a business's overarching strategy. They are the pillars of customer experience, as you can see detailed below. They are culture, authenticity, ease, luxe, surprise, and immersion. Right. Magic. All right. So culture. How well can you build the culture of your client base? Think, how well can you create shared values, shared language, shared events? Can you make small challenges? Are there group coffee dates that you can put together? Are there weekend hikes that you can do with your client, or a walk even? For culture, think about some of the ways that you personally can build shared values within your base. A good social media group is paramount to this, and we'll talk about that soon, but this is personal to each trainer or each individual and how they can build that culture within their client base. Authenticity or integrity. When getting feedback or aiming on a goal, you'll never hear, how can we be more authentic? Or from someone, you need to be 15% more authentic. What does it mean to be authentic and to have integrity? Well, that's more described in its actions. Doing the right thing, showing up, being present, being empathetic, and being you. The cool thing is that all of those things, even if you're not generally an empathetic person, you can practice. You can actually practice empathy, and it's a brilliant thing to do. When I first started personal training, that was my weak point. I was not an empathetic person. I couldn't relate to, for example, in 2009, when I was 17, I couldn't relate to a business owner who was managing the financials of his business, or a mum who was managing taking her kids to school and getting the rest of her day sorted. I couldn't relate to that. It wasn't part of me. But the more that I asked, the more that I inquired about their days, the more I understood about the struggles that they face. And that simply was enough for me to develop a little bit of empathy. So it's simple. Not easy, but it is simple. In terms of integrity, what I generally say to people is that a building needs structural integrity, and it needs for you to be able to stand on it. And your word is that building. So when it comes to having integrity, it's as simple as saying what you're going to do and doing what you said you'll do. And if you manage that, which is a lot easier, which is a lot less easier than it sounds, it actually builds integrity into your business. It's a great pillar of customer experience. Ease. How easy is it for people to engage with your business? If it's not glaringly obvious how to contact you, book in with you, or what services you can offer, the likelihood is your mainstream is going to struggle to interact. And nowadays, with a mainstream that struggles to interact, they probably won't. You need to have a big contact me button. This is what I do. These are the problems that I solve. Book an appointment with me now. Just as a question for a broader audience if they watch this, but how many people have a button saying get in touch with me now on their Facebook or on their website or at their gym? Do they have a business card? These are the types of things that we need to consider when it comes to improving ease as a customer experience of how they interact with you. Lux. Providing differentiation through your service, whether or not that's a point of difference between other trainers or services, or a point of difference that embeds within a client's life, someone with a trainer. Differentiation doesn't need to be, I have the best personal trainer above all personal trainers, but instead aim to make it obvious that they have a personal trainer. Tag them in posts or stories that they can share. Call or text them while they're at work. Picking up the phone, hey, so-and-so, I've just finished the morning in the gym and I'm headed to the office, but I thought I could call and say how impressed I was at X, Y, and Z. And then they go back to the office and say, hey, I just got a call from my trainer. They're really impressed in what I'm doing. Oh, here's what I'm doing since you're asking. So there's an element of Lux that can be provided merely by being in good touch with them so that they can tell their friends and their family what they do with their trainer. Surprise, creating a feeling of delight. Giveaways, if you have that available, what I find is really handy is head to a supplement store. They'll give you some samples. It's a great opportunity for them to market themselves at your gym. But protein powder, free shakers, small protein. They've created the small protein Snickers bar. Is just fantastic and cheap. Buy 100 of them and give them away to your clients. It's absolutely fantastic. Just saying, hey, look, I care about you, or at least I can do so by providing the Snickers bar. Finding cheap ways to outmatch your clients' expectations. Small handwritten notes, or at least remembering dates, is a really effective way to do that. At our gym, we do this thing called surprise and delight. And that is effectively each day of a month, we may leave them a piece of fruit on their cars with a small note saying, hey, you're awesome. That's it. Makes a huge difference. And people often, just as a marketing tool, people often then snap a picture of that on their car, put it on their Facebook stories and say, look what my gym did for me. It costs us like 40 cents. And so it's a really awesome tool in terms of giving your clients or your customers a pleasant surprise that tells them that you care about them. And lastly, immersion. How one-on-one can you get? How can you create an environment that your client can really settle into? What I've found is that music is a really good one. Separating your clients from the busy areas of the gym when you train with them is also a really good one, if that's a possibility. And also things like creating names of the gym areas. For example, we've got a big squat rack area that I call the big scary area. We've got a group fitness room that I call the hurt locker, and the core area, the crunch pad. And now all of my clients know where we're going depending on the names that we give them. And we've created this across time together. So configuring how you can make a one-on-one experience with your client is a really important tool for improving the overall customer experience. Also, I robbed a tool from the CrossFit community. Whenever I create a tough finisher, and I create tough finishers often, I generally name it something to do with them. So, for example, a workout that's 30 burpees, and every time they have to take a breather, they've got to start with 5 push-ups again. I might call that Abby, or I might call that the dance floor, or I might call that hip hop 2.0. And so it creates a little bit of relatability between, the things that I know they're interested in and the workouts that we put together for them. To take away from customer experience, for this to work, feedback is everything. You need to gather data. You'll find that the solutions are actually the easy part. Coming up with the answers will be relatively effortless when you begin to know your customer in greater detail. So you need to establish a sturdy means of customer feedback. For this, get a feedback form, generate some questions that will help you uncover where you are on the above standards, and then action it. I want to make my services more immersive. Well, I might ask, well, what's valuable to you? Or what's your favorite music track? Again, this is also a fail and feedback area. So where you gather information and it doesn't work, that's fantastic. It gives you feedback that you can use. I would suggest doing this every quarter, and it blends quite nicely in terms of that goal pipeline that we discussed earlier. Now my dog's just come in with the frisbee, so I apologize in advance if any drama occurs here on, but we're just going to keep on moving. We've gone over 2 of the 6 pillars. Before we continue, are there any questions so far? No, looking good. Right. Communications. The role of communication in a business setting is vital. I always liken the communication landscape to a bunch of partly blind, partly deaf people trying to interpret instructions. I have roughly 2 one-hour blocks during the week where my main focus is just to message people, asking on their progress, not least because it fits in with one of the customer experiences above, but also because it helps me navigate the landscape of client retention. Communication is we're in a business setting, the parameters between the coaching process, the programming, the health checks, the one-on-one training, and the business process become a little bit more permeable. In a coaching process, the primary role of communication is accountability, the achievement of outcomes, task and program assignment, following up on interactions, etc. In a business setting, communication is about retention, it's about growth, it's about gathering information, and also some of the above coaching stuff. While both domains dovetail quite nicely into each other, we're going to take a look at the business component. Presenting to your client, where are we? There we go. Presenting to your client, managing client information, managing client interactions, communicating and assigning tasks, and using social media as a tool. One of the big players in the room is customer relationship management platforms, effectively platforms that manage the relationships that you have with your customers. There are business-specific platforms like Xero, where you can manage financials. There are training and programming-specific platforms where you can manage your client's training plan and monitor their health through integrations. And there's social media, which may give a limited amount of access to both. And like any decision, the answer to which one might suit you best is it depends. So instead of talking to you about why you might need one, we're going to stick to the section as communication as a whole, detailing the functions and components of good communication, and then you can make the decision as whether or not it's necessary. Here are some of the things that I would consider, I would suggest you consider regarding the use of communication and communication tools that impact your business. Presentation, start here. How well do you present yourself when you first meet your client? Send a welcome email or a message that introduces you. This can be a video. It can link back to your webpage or social media, or if nothing else, a PDF document of who you are. Having something like this prior to meeting people is a super effective way of automating a process, but also gathering data before a meeting so that when you do meet up with them, you're more informed and can spend more time gathering the information that's meaningful. Managing client information.
Can I ask a question about what you just said?
Indeed.
Where do you put that introduction? Is it in an email or on your social media or?
Good question. So what you could do is simply draft an email. Hello, don't include the name. I'm such and such. This is what I do. This is what I do in my spare time. These are the problems that I serve. These are the solutions. Here's my pet dog. And here's a link to a video on how you and I catching up together is going to improve your health and fitness success. Then once you've done that, simply type in their name, type in the email, send away. As soon as the gym that you work for or if you gather your own leads, as soon as you get that lead, fire away. The other thing that you can do, So, the other thing that you can do is get a free subscription on something like MailChimp or SurveyMonkey. My suggestion in that case would just be to YouTube the how-to, because it takes about 5 minutes, and you can automate that email for you. So as soon as you get an email, it's got all of those add-ons, like here's an introduction to me, here's a video, here's some access to my social media. All you do is send that email away. Does that make sense? I know that's a lot of information to take on board. If you'd like, I can actually go through that with you some point later this week.
That'd be great. I'd like that. Yeah.
All right, done.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Oh, all right. So, managing client information. How well do you store client information? How well do you collate, interpret, and draw conclusions from all of this info? Can you record and track demographic information? Do you know how many clients you have? How much of this changes across time? It's enough to say that managing client information is important. It's important across domains of operation. It's important to know what they want. It's important to know how many people want the same thing. It's important to know what program they'll need. It's important to know when you gave it to them and when they'll need a new one. It's also important to have all of this information relatively easy and accessible on hand. What I've found is CRM's customer relationship management platforms make the gathering and interpretation of this information easy and convenient. I can produce a report of everyone who's over 50, who's after a specific goal, and I can gain access to a client's health records or their last performed bench press weight just by pushing into their account. However, you can do that with a Microsoft Excel or a variant. And so whether or not a CRM is necessary to you, it depends. But the above content is some good things to think about in terms of what you might want to know when gathering information with your client. Managing client interactions.
Can I ask a question, Andrew?
Yep.
Sorry. When it comes to the CRMs that you know of, is there any you recommend, or do you know much about in terms of size of business, ones that are scalable, like if you're a little small boutique, what you might use that might be free or small versus what they might use in big gyms, for example?
Yep. Specific to you, what I know, because you operate a center, don't you? So a gym platform like MindBody that has online class registrations and online personal training appointments is probably one of the good ones. You can also do this on PT Minder, which is a half business, half fitness monitoring platform. There's also Trainerize, which has got fantastic integrations and fantastic functions in terms of providing programs, although it doesn't integrate very well with invoicing. And there's also Personal Training Distinction, which is similar to Trainerize, except it's slightly more expensive and has slightly more health integrations, like tracking people's habits and providing people with nutrition programs, which are generic.
Yeah, no, that's great. Thank you. I've used MindBody before and it was just a bit big for me, and a bit too, obviously, with that, so many great features that just weren't really utilized with this sort of client I'm working with. So, but no, that's cool. I'll have a little browse of those. Thank you.
Very good. Yeah. Managing client interactions. How often do you get in touch with your clients? How often do you need to get in touch with your clients? Is it client-centered? Some are high needs and some are low needs. Is it situational? Some are training for a competition. Others don't like to be bothered until their program is due. These might be questions that you want to consider when you're gathering information from your clients. Managing interactions with your clients, not least for the assignment of programs and tasks, is a big retention tool. Previously, we talked about authenticity as a pillar, showing your clients you care by messaging them about an important event, or managing if or how they're managing if they were stressed when you train them in the morning. It's a vital retention tool just to know a little bit more and to gather a little bit more information about your clients and to show them that you care. This is very much a soft skill. Last month, she's not here right now, but last month, Jessie provided a gold mine of valuable approaches to this component. So I won't dwell too much on this area. But as you know, you can do the messaging and the contacting just as easily over Facebook or text just as much as a CRM. So I can't say that a CRM provides an edge in this area. I do know that from some of them, PT Minder specifically, you can click on a diary appointment because you've got a big layout of your week. You can click on a diary appointment and it brings up the client, their information, and a messaging system that you can then contact them. So you can choose to contact people based on when you saw them last, or at least on a, I suppose you'd call that a chronological setting. Managing task assignment. So the main question here is, how well can you maximize the client's week? Can you task information to follow up on any given date? And can you automate the assigning of tasks? I want to do some quick maths. There are 168 hours in a week. You see your client for a half-hour appointment, or maybe 2 half-hour appointments, or a 1-hour class. What percentage of time is that in a week? Roughly 0.45%, or roughly 0.9%. And that's even if you factor the 56 hours that they should be sleeping. Of all their working hours, you'll be interacting face-to-face with them for less than 1%. Managing interactions and managing task assignment are a super powerful tool that aids retention and of course reaching their fitness goals, but relevant within the business scope. So asking, what's on the cards this week? Workout 3 tomorrow, workout 4 on Friday. And you might say, great, can I follow that up? And it's simple as sitting down when you next sit down in one of the blocks that you've organized to communicate with your clients. Hey, just checking in, how did your workout 3 and 4 go? Simple as that. I don't know about you, but more often than not, I'll have clients say, I didn't manage to do them. And that's okay. All we're doing is checking and assess, just basically stating that we care. Whenever we message our clients, it's not so much the I'm checking in on you, it's more I'm messaging you to show you that I care. And sometimes that's enough to make a difference in their progress. Now, I know this all sounds like a lot, but I can tell you that doing this is definitely and infinitely easier to keep a client than it is to make one. So while it all sounds like a lot, if you didn't do this, you'd probably be spending a lot more time trying to market and sell your product or your services instead of managing the retention of client base. So this is why this is important. Lastly, using social media for communications. Now, another component of communication is social media. This is a free tool that you can use to help shepherd your clients in terms of any collective messaging. Yes, you can use Messenger or other social media tools for communication, but in that sense, it's more of a channel. The real power of social media as a CRM is with groups. There are multiple functions and crossover that I've talked about above that you can do with managing your clients on Facebook groups, and I definitely recommend that you have one. Just make sure that you put clear rules on how people conduct themselves and what people post about and behavior and what, so it doesn't get it's not discordant as opposed to supportive. The way I use mine is to keep everyone in the loop with what I'm focusing on or what I'm struggling with or what I'm up to over the weekend and what classes is going on and where I'm attending them. But I'll also try to create buy-in with some lead by example approaches that I put for my client base on my Facebook group. Are there any questions there on communications and CRM? Right, marketing. Now, first off, marketing is not my field of expertise. If you're at a level where you know marketing is going to make a difference, speak to a professional. Not only do the technicalities of marketing extend across different subfields, but they differ constantly across time. Algorithms change, keywords change, platforms change, search engine optimization changes, and it's a little bit beyond me. But what generally remains the same are the fundamentals. The need to be clear about your demographic, finding a demographic, researching their wants, their needs, their struggles, their desires, their challenges. So we're going to talk about the fundamentals of marketing and how our goals determine how we market. Marketing is the research behind your sales and growth strategy. It's the megaphone of your communication, and it's the business card of your brand and customer experience. The reason why marketing is essential is because we need to know about who we're trying to target. There is an invisible dialogue between the product we have and the people who may want it, and we need to know enough about marketing to ensure that it's the right type of people who are exposed to it. This also gives us feedback in terms of whether or not our product is up to scratch or the right fit. In terms of communication, are your prospective clients reachable on Facebook, or are they only going to respond via word of mouth? Are they going to click a button, or do you need to call them? How well does your product relate to your market? And are you, as your product, addressing the right issues? These are some of the things that market research, in the form of feedback and in the form of questionnaires, you can help improve the quality and the reachability of the services that you deliver. So, where are we? There we go. So, one of the first things that we need to identify is our target market, and we can call this an ideal client avatar. Basically, what you're effectively doing is taking the larger portion of the information. Hopefully, you will have gathered this from your CRM or some form of communication. How many clients of yours are male or female? What are their age? What is their goals? And what have you? And that can give you some good demographic info on what type of person may embody the most common client that you have. And I'm going to give you an example. Mine I've called Big Boss Bob or Bonnie. They're usually a sole trader, or they're usually a businessman, or consequently, and sort of beside the point, it's usually their husband or wife, but we're not going to talk about them at the moment. BBB, triple B, they're 40 plus, they're busy, they're stressed, they're a sole trader, or they run their, or they are pretty high up in a particular business. They're overweight, they know what to do, but just need a little bit of encouragement or accountability to do it. They'll either come into the gym first thing in the morning, or they're there immediately after work. They may call me up and ask for a lunchtime appointment, but if they do that, they'll do it well in advance because they're pretty controlling of their schedule. They don't care too much about how much it's going to cost. They're not interested in discounts, but they do care about their progress, and they like the numbers. If you say, let's do 8 or 12, they're probably only going to hear 12. That's Big Boss Bob. From just an Excel spreadsheet, or which I can download from my CRM, that's what I can find out. And it's pretty easy if you can just write it down with your clients as well. This is Bridget, she's 56. This is Jane, she's 30. This is Malcolm, he's 40. Here are all of their goals. And if you do that on an Excel spreadsheet, you can, male or female, you can literally just filter out the commonalities. Does that make sense? Awesome, awesome. Marketing is how you use this information. Marketing are the tactics you use to accomplish the strategies. And remembering those strategies are customer intimacy, operational excellence, or product leadership. Those are the big strategies that we may use for our business. So let's go through a couple of examples. Customer intimacy. Triple B needs to know that I care about him, that I'm an expert with dealing with the problems that he faces or she faces. I'm not trying to sell him half price appointments. He doesn't care about how well I can cater for every single fitness goal. He wants to get out of his head. He's going to pick up my humorous flyer at the Workman's Club or an idea for stress relief at a cafe about doing something with his gut or his stress, respectively. He's probably going to call me and I'm going to be ready to meet him at one of those places over the next few days. Information, the collection of the information, and my ability to meet with him. Operational excellence. Well, let's say I'm after operational excellence. Triple B needs to know that I'm going to get back to him pronto. I'll call him ASAP, and if I can't get hold of him, I'll leave him a message. I'll be working hard to predict his expectations, and he'll have a lot of info from me before we meet. I'll create posts about not needing to make decisions because I'll have it all set up by the time that he arrives. And the experience will be completely centralized surrounding the pillars of experience. Product leadership. I want to be a leader in the product I sell. It's probably a new product, heart rate variability, monitoring sleep, working with dietitians and physios to manage stress, cholesterol, and injury. I know my product. It's the latest and the greatest, and I'm the best. The cutting edge tells me that this audience, Big Boss Bob in this case, is probably going to be on social media. They may be focused on trying to look younger, and my posts will be targeting the rejuvenating or the decreasing of aging. Depending on what you're trying to convey, things differ. And again, this is a dialogue, meaning that what the information provides you, you must also allow this to take, you must also use that to take into account as to whether or not you're using the right product. Things to consider regardless of your strategy. Is everyone okay with that sort of marketing element depending on the strategies? Cool. Things to consider regardless of strategy. Right. Your social media should tell everyone exactly who you are, what you do, how long you've been doing it for. All of this needs to be plainly accessible, and it somewhat needs to be accessible in less than 5 seconds. Some marketing professionals say that that's too long. You have to support inquiries through some form of messaging app, and it should be set up that you have an automated response for every new message that comes in. Now, if that isn't the case, if you just Google have an automated response in Messenger, it will give you a 4-step way of doing that in less than 5 minutes. Does that make sense? Fantastic. You should have a lot of positive reviews on your social media. This is really important because it links in with the most powerful marketing tool that we have, which is word of mouth. But it's also important because when looking into strategies for services, reputation and credibility can sometimes be quite pivotal. Ask people that you work with, be honest with them. Hey, I'm trying to develop my business front. I want to do better and look better and to serve better. Could you please leave me a review on my page so I can know that you like what I do, or at least what I need to work on. Lastly, with posting, what I've noticed is that the people who are doing well are posting roughly 2 to 5 times per week. It keeps you relevant. It keeps you in touch with your client base. And good posts are generally a two-way street of information. And it allows you to see what your clients and prospective clients value in terms of the content. The topic of your marketing and posting is very often dependent on your goals, but the quality should always be as high as possible. One of the things that I constantly like to think to manage that is, would the successful competition that I'm working with be okay with the quality of this post? Or would the people that I look up to post something like this? Takeaway points from marketing. Create a client avatar. Know your client base and embody that into a particular person that you're marketing towards solely. And that should encapsulate the majority of people who you're trying to serve. What are they? What do they do? What are their problems? What channels of communication will reach them best, and what are the solutions to their problems? Right. Questions on marketing? Fantastic. Right. Sales. Now, there are a few differences in sales depending on your business model. I work in a model where the gym I'm contracted to does the outreach for me. I consult with new members who have been pushed in my direction. And that particular avenue makes up a portion of my leads. Other places who don't work as contractors or gym owners generally have to do this to themselves, but we're focusing on personal trainers, so we'll keep it to that original scope. Sales is ultimately how you take that prospective client that you acquired through your marketing or the gym's marketing and onboard them as a paying client. There are three things that you need: a sales funnel, an effective consultation process, and a professional sign-up. So the sales funnel. A pretty simple one that we can detail out for an understanding is this: leads, prospects, clients. Heading down. In terms of the leads, the large part of the funnel, the leads start at you, your social media, your website, or at your gym. In this instance, you'll be provided a lead by your membership consultation team or whatever the gym calls them, and you'll have a lead. Otherwise, people register interest in the things that you do, say, post, offer, and they'll like, comment, message, call you, or ask about you. And every single one of these instances needs to be addressed accordingly. Admittedly, if someone hits the like button on one of your things, that might not be suggesting that you call them to talk about business. But if their response is a call to action, maybe. We've already been over that you should have some kind of system that captures your interactions. Once you've gotten a whole bunch of leads, some of them, as a result of your interaction with them, will become prospects. They may be interested in your service, they may be prospective clients, and you're looking to follow that up. From here, they all get some kind of response from you. An email, a phone call, an appointment, however you want to play it. These are the people who may be interested in doing business with you, and they should be treated as such. A good number to track here is how many people who interact with you as leads become prospects with a conversation or consultation to their name. More sophisticated funnels can sometimes differentiate themselves from here in terms of awareness, qualification, and initial consultation, but we're going to keep it simple. Lastly, clients. You've got prospects, which are good numbers to track. How many people are interacting with you? How many people are messaging you back? How many people are you able to meet up with? And how many of those people that you meet up with are converting to clients? We're going to talk about what to do with those numbers in the accounting, but for now, tracking those numbers comes in handy. In terms of converting clients to your funnel, you'd aim to have a good consultation and a sign-up process. And this would be the fruit of you knowing your market and being able to anticipate their needs and provide an experience. Hopefully, you're beginning to see how all of these particular elements of the business process start to mesh into each other. So we're going to delve into the consult and the sign-up, which I think has already been done really effectively by one of the other ambassadors who did a mastering the consultation process. So be sure to check that out. But by having that sales funnel, you can begin to detail the steps that turn a lead into someone who wants to do business with you. Like all of the above elements, this also links quite nicely with the strategy and the goal segment, such as a goal might be improved sales strategy, which could lead to increased lead volume by 10% and measure conversion numbers, or finally find your weekly/monthly lead average. Start taking note of those numbers. The consultation process. The consultation process needs to be a bit of a polished gem for interpreting information, providing solutions that meet the prospective client's expectations, and managing objections. And while a lot of us are absolutely fantastic at the first two, you'd be surprised how many people, including myself, haven't sharpened their skills of managing objections. And I use managing instead of overcoming for a good reason. Firstly, if you remember, gather some data before you meet them. It's magic, and it means that you can have a meaningful and serious conversation when you first catch up. However, if you don't, in terms of the consult, I think it's pretty clear and well clued in that we need to know their goals, how they might be willing to achieve them, their limitations that life places on them, kids, work, health, etc., and their injury and medical profile. We're all in agreement that these are somewhat the most important things to establish in a consultation process. Now, solutions will vary enormously between everyone. They may have specific issues. You might be super talented or perhaps even brand new to the industry. They may have some bad experience with a particular exercise and you have to work around it. Things differ. In terms of offering solution, based on the information, is just a circumstance of how well you can interpret their wants and needs. I don't necessarily have answers on the solution element, besides be honest with your limitations, be humble and creative, and also detail out what the solutions might look like over 12 odd weeks. It creates a huge opportunity for buy-in if they think that's a great idea. And then you can actually use that in terms of onboarding them. In terms of managing objections, personally, I've struggled with objections in the past. It kind of makes me nervous. The thought of trying to push something onto someone who's hesitant makes me feel a bit uncomfortable. My philosophy is that while it may work for a product, in the sense where you could sell it and that would be the end of it, it doesn't hold up in a services relationship very well. We provide a service across a long span of time, and you might use some conversion skill to get them across the mark, but if it's just going to like break through their objectives after 3 weeks, they may feel a little bit tricked, and so would I. And so pushing past someone's objectives, personally, I think is not as authentic for me, but again, that varies person to person. Managing objectives isn't pushing. What you're aiming to do is uncover what people are confused or hesitant about. It's gathering information about what your client's needs are specifically, which is valuable to the both of you. It may be that once you get an objection, you're no longer selling to this person in front of you, but instead you're just gathering information on what might be useful for future interactions with other people. What are the top objections that people make? It's too expensive, or they'll need to get back to you. You could ask, as a result of that, you might ask, we can offer payment plans, or we can negotiate. You might ask, how could you set a tone that identifies the importance of their health leading up to the objection? If you know, for example, that in terms of, let's say, using a skill from motivational interviewing, that they're 8 out of 10 ready, they're 7 out of 10 confident, it's 10 out of 10 important, and they're 10 out of 10 able, for example, before selling to them, you might say, here's a really inexpensive way for you to take care of your health, which we know that you're capable of achieving. Managing objections before they arise. So when people say they'll get back to you, ask them to help you. What would it be for them to jump on board right now? What's not making them jump on board right now? Knowing these things moving forward may lead you to manage objectives more effectively instead of simply trying to push through them. Now, I'm not too sure if I have the complete answers to this or if anyone does, but knowing what the main objections that you face and how you might work with them is an excellent thing that you could be investigating while you're in level 3 or before the gym is reopened. Knowing what they are and what some good responses to them are really good ways for you to build sales, especially when you're returning back to your business. Right, professional sign-up. You have to have a simple means for your customer, your client, your prospective client to buy into your service, Do you have a visual aid that offers once a week, twice a week, multiple times a week, group training appointments? Can you explain the benefits of choosing different options? Can you explain it in a flowchart-like manner how your sign up works? They sign this, they meet you here, they bring such and such to their first, second, third appointment. And again, this could all be emailed and messaged them prior to their first catch up. You should have some agreement form that details payment, rules surrounding sickness, no-shows, cancellations. Just having this is really, really helpful, just to make it abundantly clear for obvious reasons. Sometimes it can be a bad time when you get mucked around a little bit because life gets in the way for your client, which is understandable, and it comes across as you sort of making up rules on the spot on how to deal with particular no-shows. And hopefully the sign-up process is the easiest part of that formality. Here are some things that I consider when I offer a sign-up process. Do you have a system that educates a new client? YouTube videos over different machines in your gym, introduction to basic training packages. Do you have like a 10 appointment package to go through programming basics, technique basics, nutrition basics, rest and recovery basics that you can sell in there, half an hour to 1 hour long. And each sort of the 10 session, you're going to detail a particular sort of element of, let's say, the training fundamentals. That's a really awesome package that upon the sign up process you can deliver, and it's just going to improve it that much. And lastly, one thing I say about follow up is always follow up every conversation within a 24-hour period. That isn't so much a black and white rule as much as it's a gold standard. If you can meet that mark, you can even, by the way, you can even measure yourself against that mark and push that as a goal. But if you can meet that mark, that's awesome. Your clients will respect you for that. Are there any questions surrounding sales? Got one more thing to go through: accounting. We're doing fantastically. Right, accounting. So when we go through accounting, we generally think of taxes, which is true in part. At least pay your taxes. And we'll look at that, but accounting can be further divided into financial accounting and managerial accounting. The financial accounting concerns the regulatory environment of the balance sheets, the statement of profit and loss, and the cash flow, all of which is kind of boring and tedious put together, but it's vengeful and misleading when you get it wrong. For this reason, get an accountant. I mean that, you get an accountant. But for the record, you can do it yourself, but if it gets handed in and it hasn't gone through the pathway of a registered accountant, they're more likely to scratch their heads when they see it. And sometimes that question mark can be a bit unfavorable if they choose to look into that. It's not worth it. If you get an accountant, it's just so much easier. But on top of that, the amount of money that you actually save by good tax planning, expensing things that are expenses, for example, you actually find that the accountant mainly pays itself off. I think personally, when I hand my accounts across to an accountant at the end of each financial year, it costs me between $400. They take a look at my entire accounts, they take a look at the expenses, they take a look at the capital expenditures, they take a look at all of the income coming in, they tell me how much tax I need to pay, and they send me a bill for $400. That's roughly $8 a week if you put it away as a budgeting tool. $8 a week will pay for your accountant. It's tax deductible. It's the price of, I suppose, one Auckland coffee. I don't know if that's a joke or not, but that's ridiculous. Right, but what I'm going to do is once this video has been recorded, I've got a small income and expenses sheet that I'll provide for you all. It's merely just gathering the inflow of revenue, and you can monitor the outflow of expenses. You can detail what specifically they are, and then when you go to your accountant, you can hand that in with your books, And as a result, they'll know what you're referring to when you went to Rebel Sport and bought some equipment. Okay. Managerial accounting. In terms of managerial accounting, we can think of this as the decision making that we do with the numbers. You have an understanding of how much you make a day, how many appointments you have per week, how much you charge per hour. And if your rates differ, you may charge differently depending on classes or students or friends. So you might want to find out how much you charge per hour on average. What time of day you're most busy, how many people you see for weight loss or muscle gain, what percentage of your clients work with other health professionals. All of these underpin the massive information that we can use to make some financial decisions. Here are some things to consider if you want to look through your business through the managerial accounting lens. If your average hourly income is $60, which is somewhat varied, let's say between $30 or $50 for half-hour appointments or $60 to $80 for hourly appointments, it could vary enormously between trainers, but for mathematical purposes, let's go for $30 for half an hour and $60 for a full hour. That's $1 a minute. Let's say you want to make $80,000 a year. You pay $10,000 in rent, so that's roughly a $90,000 revenue year. If you charge $60 an hour, that's 15,000. That's 15,000 hours you need to work. 1,500 appointments per year, or 125 appointments per month, depending on how much time you aim to take off. Let's say 4 weeks, because that's the amount of public holidays. Then that's 31 billable hours per week, or 6 hours, 5 days a week. Are you meeting that? How does that knowledge impact your decision making? It may mean you need to focus on growth. Let's say the growth of 8 more clients. If you have a sales funnel that we talked about earlier, it may mean that you know that on average, 5 consultations lead to 1 client. So every 5 sit downs you have with prospective clients, you convert 1. That might mean you need to make 8 more clients. You need to have 40 consultations. Is that realistic? Managerial accounting asks, how does that fit in with your schedule? What are the changes you need to make? Managerial accounting suggests open up a few spaces in the evening or whenever your target market uses the gym most. You might ask, how can I shuffle if I'm busy in the evening? Another element that managerial accounting can delve into is, how do you measure client satisfaction? How long does your average client stay for? What's your client lifespan? Not to confuse with the actual sort of like client lifespan, but like how long they stick with you, of course. But how do you measure the effort required for a customer to buy in or engage with your product? These are all good questions that you can actually ask and find out using different measures. Last year, I produced a report that covered this area a little bit, targeting mainly non-financial performance measures. Again, managerial accounting is about making the decisions with the numbers. Some of those numbers are financial and they confuse, stump, and boggle, but some are not financial. How many clients do you see? How long do you spend performing administrative tasks per week? I argued that if we as service providers focused on non-financial performance measures, we could focus on the numbers we're good at, which lead to a higher financial outcomes. For anyone listening, these are things that we can go over together, but you're probably finding that the questions are honed enough to be able to answer them straight off the bat. If I were to say, how many clients do you have? You could probably rattle that off. If I were to say, how much money are you projecting to make in the next 7 days? You could probably rattle that off. And that can give you averages, that can give you derivatives that you can then make interpretations or solutions to. Right. Here it is. Questions and discussions. What we've gone over is everything pertaining to a business process that a personal trainer or a sole contractor might need to consider if they're looking to do business well. The beautiful thing about all of this is it's things you can do while you're waiting for business to reopen. And it's always something that will be important, and the importance of it probably won't shift in terms of your business processes. There are, a number of other things. There are a number of more complex marketing strategies. There are more complex sales funnels. There's more customer experience strategies that you can use. There's, different goal setting processes like SMART. And again, there are different measurements that you can provide using managerial accounting, depending on what your business is trying to target. But what we've discussed today are the fundamentals that if you put into your business, you will immediately do better. Thank you. Questions?
Just thank you, Andrew. That was amazing. Really, really cool. Really appreciate it. I've, as I'm sure Nikki and Rain and the rest of us are all very hungry for knowledge. And when you're spending a long time in this industry or beginning to, you start to get so many conferences and things under your belt, workshops and things, that some of the information sort of just goes through because you've heard it before. But as you can see, the notes I've got too, like there's so much gold in that. So really cool. I've got a to-do list ready for the afternoon now. There's so much to keep going with. So thank you. Really, really good.
I too have a to-do list that sort of ticks off a lot of the stuff that I've talked about. And so I can make that available. And of course, with Raina, we can talk about some of the marketing techniques such as MailChimp or just having a draft email that you can use as well. So those are the things that we can sort of discuss further and later.
I'd just like to add my thanks as well, Andrew, because I thought that was really great. And I think actually the timing of it is perfect because we're especially while we're in lockdown here, we've had a lot of time to think about how we want business to look when we come out of even lockdown or Christmas period. So I think this is a really good time to reassess what we've got, and you can say I've got that, and then you've kind of highlighted a couple of gaps that I've got. So yeah, I've got a to-do list too. Great, perfect timing. Thank you.
Fantastic. All right, guys. Well, other than that, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate that. And if any of you had feedback for areas that need more detail or areas that need more detail, that would be so awesome. Yeah.
Cool. Thanks so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Right. Thanks, guys.